fellow book lovers. Today I'm going to be talking about the book The Magic Fish. This is actually a graphic novel that I picked up after attending a webinar where the author spoke about the book, and I was super interested in picking it up. So I ordered it a while ago, and it took me some time to get to reading. Not that I wasn't interested in it. I just wasn't really in the zone, I guess, to read the graphic novel. I don't know why. Because like I said, I was really drawn to it. I thought it'd be really good, and then I was just kind of in a funk. I don't know. So I finally got around to reading it, and I love it. This is beautiful. Both the artwork and the story are beautiful. The story really conveys the importance of stories in order to connect to one another and express oneself. And I just found the whole thing charming. So essentially, this story is about a young boy who his mother is a Vietnamese immigrant, and when she came over to the States, obviously there was a language barrier. She does not speak English, and so she's attempting to learn English. Her son, of course, who was born in America, can speak English, and he suffers a bit more with learning Vietnamese. And so kind of to find middle ground, but also help his mother to learn English, he reads fairy tales to her. And so this book is split between the narration, the following of his story, and then interspersed with different fairy tales that are being told, but then also bits of the mother's story told throughout scenes, and how really the fairy tales that she is hearing is reminding her of experiences that she had in the past and leading her to this current life that she has. And I love that. I love that interconnectivity. It was fascinating and very enthralling. The main fairy tale that gets shared and told first is Tattercoats, which actually is one of my favorite fairy tales from when I was little. It's Cinderella-esque, but I don't know, I guess more enjoyable. I liked it a lot more. So it's one that I would recommend, but it's so charming how there are bits of it that as he's reading the story of Tattercoats, his mother starts to drift in her thoughts to being back in Vietnam and having like that struggle and that need to try to get out, but at the same time the sadness that she would be leaving her homeland and her mother. And we quickly find out too that her mother is currently very ill in Vietnam, and she doesn't know if she could go and be with her. I don't know, it's just very good. There's a lot of emotional stuff that's happening, and the book isn't exceptionally long, but it does become that need for the mom to convey her story and her relationship with her mother. But the son is also dealing with a lot of issues. He's trying to find a way to express and communicate to his mother that he's gay, and I think in part there isn't a word that he knows how to say. There's not a word for it in Vietnamese, so he's not sure how he can come out and tell his mother, because he doesn't know how to express that in a way that she'll understand. So you see that way for the two of them trying to communicate with one another, and that's just how the story goes. And you'll see that evolution throughout these other stories that are told about them trying to communicate with one another and find middle ground. Here's some of the artwork in it. Hopefully you can see it. It's gorgeous. It uses a very simple color palette. So each part will have a different color palette. Like this is a reddish pink palette. when it's his part of the story, and then when it transitions to the fairy tale, it turns into like this purple palette. And I love the way that that's done. When it goes to the mother flashing back to her past, it goes to like yellow, and then back to purple for the fairy tale, and then back to the pinkish red tones. And it's such an interesting way to do the story and share the graphic novel story and keep you in world, so that you know like where you are and how it relates to the story overall. Oh, there's so much that I like. At the end, there's really great notes for this, explaining like the choices that were made and why, and the importance of this story. And of course, I feel lucky because I got to hear the author say it himself with the webinar. But yeah, it's just, this is a good one. I think this is an important read for a lot of people, just to find that middle ground and that place of understanding of people, because maybe you don't have the same experience as somebody else, but you can find a way to be on level ground and to just see and accept people for who they are. So that was my take on it. So yes, in this case, you know, there's cultural differences that get kind of touched upon. There's language barrier, but there's also the universality of, you know, stories and human communication. And if you try hard enough, you can find that middle ground and communicate with anybody. Yeah, I don't know. This is a super, super delightful read. So if you enjoy graphic novels, I would highly recommend The Magic Fish. If you enjoy fairy tales, I would highly recommend The Magic Fish. This got me in such a mood to revisit fairy tales and reread them, especially the classics. And, you know, often we kind of get to the Disney-fied classics, but I love the original fairy tales and their stories. Yeah, sometimes you can't beat just a classic tale. So I actually invested in some of the fairy tales, like big books that you can catch in my haul video. But I felt in a mood to read and revisit some of the fairy tales. Like I said, I'd really love to read Tattercoats again, because that was one of my favorite fairy tales from when I was small. So I'd like to revisit that one again. And, you know, maybe some of the other ones also kind of inspired me to want to read diverse culture fairy tales, maybe look into that more. I'm not sure how many have been published, but I certainly would like to give it a try, because there's a lot that we don't hear about. You know, we'll mention a lot of the European fairy tales, but a lot of times we miss out on some of the great ones. I have read various Asian fairy tales before, but I would like, I don't know, to broaden that scope and take in a few more, because I love folklore and fairy tales, and seeing the similarities between cultures and stories. I think it just, a lot of times it is because cultures will touch upon each other and share the stories, but sometimes I think it does also just go to show how very similar humans are in general. I think a lot of times we get caught up in making ourselves different from one another when we are very much the same. And I like that, because sometimes when you get to classic stories, you can really see that we had sort of the same interests and ideas, and, you know, it's interesting. It's finding that middle ground, much of what this book does. So please read The Magic Fish. That's about all I'm going to say. I'll be interested to see if this comes up for any of the big graphic novel awards this year, because I think one, it would deserve at least a nomination. So we'll see. That's it for this video. Until next time. Bye.